Mr. Zen, good morning. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Gentlemen, what's our mental health topic of the day today?
I'm going to talk about how we foster our community and basically and grow. I think that's what we kind of talked about.
How though? How do you think about, like, what goes through your mind when you hear that topic? Like, how do you know that you've met your goal?
I think it's a continuous moving goalpost. I don't think that's I don't know if you can say that's like an official accomplishment ever. I think part of the accomplishment is like that journey that you're always on. Are you aware of what's going on? Um,
Sorry, just 1 second, guys.
in the environment around you. So online community is the hardest, but I think like one of the biggest thing is creating an actual safe space outside of the online environment is the hardest thing to do. I think that's a mission of mine. So how do I know I've ever got there? I don't know if you ever will because your goal is to always continually find new people that want to help grow the community as well, to find more people. I think that's kind of part of the mission. I think that's how you probably know you're on the right track. You have other members wanting to bring in new members. What do you think, the dad?
I agree. It's ever evolving, much like everything else on this app. It amplifies everything. So it's I don't know. It's like being under a magnifying glass all the time. So it just makes everything seem bigger than it actually is. You know, you take that little circle that you have, and it just amplifies it, and all the little issues become so much bigger because now there's this huge amount of people that are exposed to everything all at once. So it becomes a huge conversation. So that circle spreads very quickly. So to find the right community that kind of keeps that contained and knows what to focus on,
What do you mean by contained?
like doesn't blow it out of proportion because everything's magnified and louder than it already needs to be on here. It's like relationships times 100 on here because you have so many people coming in and out all the time, and it's who do you focus on? How do you know which direction to lead the people because they're called followers, right? It's a family. It was termed followers. So I mean, they came into your room for a reason, so you want to foster that path. Which direction do you go on and take them with you?
I don't think cult following is the right word.
Not cult.
Just saying. Like, I look at the people that come into my room as friends and as people. Sorry, she will be out of the way in a moment. But as people, as you know, I wouldn't call them fans either. I think I would call them more closer to like acquaintances or friends, right? Like-minded people wanting to hang out with each other.
Extended family. That's what I call mine. Like mine is my big fam, but I was just using the term followers because that's what it's termed as on here, right? Um, yeah, it's which, like, how do you pick which direction to go so that the emphasis is on what you originally planned by coming on here. I think it never stops evolving, it never stops growing, like Zen said, but like, what do you want to focus on, I think, is the difficult question.
I love you. But can
What do you focus on right now?
Sorry, everyone. For me, I would focus on the one at a time, right? You're going to have one person that's there like a ride or die, you know? I throw my focus on that individual person first and be like, hey, like, what do you want to see? How do you want to, how do we want to cultivate more people to come and hang out with us? I'd start with that one person that's there every day and then kind of grow it from there because that's all you can really do, right? You grow one by one by one by one, and eventually you'll have a team of people that, you know, that are with you. At least that's how I think about it. I'm still new, so like prove me wrong, but that's kind of what I thought how to do the community growth and how to make that, build properly.
Not wrong. Like that's not a bad way to do it for sure. That's mine. I was told and then redirected by actually coming into your lives then, because my direction was going to be to not continue, and then I heard words from you and Jules and some other people, and that told me again what I had already heard before, which was what you mentioned, a safe place. But you wanted a safe place outside of this. Uh, I've created a safe place inside, and people.
Yeah.
That's what I've continued to focus on. So it's
My question is always like how safe can it be when it's like publicly exposed?
Sorry, excuse me a second, guys. Come on.
That's like my one thing that I've struggled with is you can definitely uh, control who we kind of think we see, but that's my biggest cry, um, to foster community offline as well that can move not just through this platform, but we don't know the transparent. There's a lot of things on this app that can be seen from many angles, and so I don't know if I could trust someone sharing something close or relatively close to them over time, just with my experience. And that's where I think a lot of the like a bound like the that boundaries kind of thing comes up for me. I just don't know how safe I can make anything feel at that stage.
I see that. One
How do you
thing I
deal with
share
that?
with whoever comes into mine is like I'm very open. Like I'm very comfortable with showing and revealing intimate details of my life that I'm comfortable with. Like I'm not giving people my address and stuff like, but I say what town I'm in. Um, I say where I go shopping. If I run into somebody on here, that's fine. But like from somebody else's perspective, I get it. From mine, I'm okay with it. Um, as far as other people coming in and sharing, I always say you don't have to share anything. You don't have to say anything. You can just hang out, or you can share as much as you want because we built a community that is very supportive. There's been many times where people have come in with negative things to say, and I haven't even had to say anything. Somebody else has addressed it, but kindly. Whereas, you know, other times people have come in with just crushing news, and a whole bunch of people just jump on them and go, "Oh, is everything okay? What can we do to help?" And that's amazing. And I see the same thing in your community as well. Same with you, Bite Boss. Like the group of friends that you've started with on yours, they're amazing from what I've seen.
How do
I
we
think
as
we've all built the same thing.
so my question though is okay, so how how do we so in terms of like fostering a community, how do we become the best examples though to say, hey, like this shouldn't kind of be said, but this should, for example. Like, how do we become the best examples to be able to show balance to others in what should or shouldn't be shared? I think that's like part of that, you lose like I don't know, there's a sense of intimacy there, but then there's a loss of privacy at the same time.
Well, I think you can have a safe balance there, right? Here's what I think. I think communication is always key with your key members, no matter whom they might be, right? You can use like other sources like Discord, or if you have a website, you could do like posted bulletins, like the good old days, like PHPBB, for example. Whoop, throwback. But what you could do with that is you could post up like, hey, this is the vision for the week. Here's kind of where I want things to go this week. Here's some topics to bring up. Here are some topics to avoid. These are all possible, like, things you could post about, right? Whether you use Discord, website, whatever. Then you could communicate that to your community, right? Because your key players, it won't be you necessarily that's guiding the chat. It'll be your key players of your main mod or the people that are there every day, right? Because they'll really want to follow the same direction as you, the host, right? Imagine you with like a torch, right? Like the Olympians, right? You're the one holding that torch, moving everyone forward, right? Whether you go left, they all go left. You go right, they all go right. That's like you are the one leading the people. So if there's something in your conversation that you're not happy with, or the direction in which it's going, it's your job, the host, to steer the conversation in the right way, right? And to do that, you give people guides, right? You say, well, hey, like, let's not talk about, like, for example, here in this room, I'll use this as an example. We don't really talk about religion. We don't talk about politics usually. The reason why, because everyone has a different damn opinion. How do you unify an opinion about that? You can't. It's impossible, because you're always going to get somebody that's going to be the complete opposite of you. So instead of having those tough topics, you just avoid them altogether. You just say, please don't talk about this. Right?
Yeah.
That's my thought on that.
Fair.
I think there's interpretation to everything, though. Like, people are entitled to their opinions, obviously, and everybody thinks they're right. That's the great thing about opinions and how people feel about things. Nobody thinks they're wrong.
No, but I definitely question
whether you
myself.
disagree or not, like whether you disagree with them or not, everybody thinks they're right at the time, whether they have the information to be correct intelligently or they're just spouting something they heard at that point in time. They think they're right. So I mean, I think it's definitely up to us to provide some sort of guidelines for the new people, or offer some assistance in some way to fellow creators. Like, we're all at different stages of creating. But basically just suggestions instead of just telling people like, hey, based on my experience, this is what I've seen. That's kind of like, take this and then look at it from however you want to look at it and use it how you need to use it so that it suits you. That's what I like about going around to so many different people and seeing stuff. So you can pick your direction and have your path carry on in that way based on your interpretation, much like everybody else, right? Because we all have the same goals. As far as I'm concerned, we all do. We want a good community. We want a healthy, safe place, but we're doing it in different ways.
Yeah, and that's like the healthy and safe part. The safe's like a big like I like when every time I hear safe and then online, those two things together, they don't mix very well. Like it's like putting black in with white. Like you're not gonna get nice. It's gonna gray it out, and then that becomes kind of not defined. So my big question is, someone comes new to your community, to anywhere, and you have safety without. So in my experience, the way I look at it now is I've seen so much come out of long term of too much basically online being talked about. I've seen that many times, and I've heard that to haunt. And the biggest problem for me, that the way I look at it is like I'm like a police officer that's seen too many people that have like done speeding and other dangerous acts that have led to accidents and led to longer to more and more things that I see the data because I've seen all these accidents, but no one else does because maybe it's their first, third, or fifth time really speeding like crazy. And so that's kind of the area of when I hear safety and online, it's a very, very, people put two and two together like we all do. And so over time, you can almost build a case against someone online. And so that part of that, I find it very difficult to allow that proper boundaries to be built because I've seen so much damage happen from just the wrong piece of information slipped at the wrong time.
For me, I think I'm not going to tell you where I live right away. It's true, I just won't. But I don't mind giving out some information when I start to, like, you start showing me green flags. You know, what I value closest to me first. And as those flags go up, whether they're green or red, will decide your future with me. Whether I keep a distance, whether I feel that I can trust you with information, or whether I treat you sacred, meaning that you have the most amount of information and anything that you ask me, I'll tell you. Very few people have met all the way. But it doesn't mean that I don't care about somebody any different along that chain either. But it does mean that the amount of information that I will tell you is very filtered, depending on those categories.
So what about a mass scale though? Like what if you're put in front of a big audience and then you no longer have the ability to do so your one-to-one is well past. Now what do you do with a core community and then you have a new bunch of people that have to get to know you, or you can no longer allow that community to grow?
So I have a book, sort of speak for me. Like think of it like a manual. I've got the quick set manual, I've got the more advanced manual, and then I've got for the elite kind of style. So in a general sense, like you said, so if I'm in an auditorium full of kids and I'm trying to, talk about my career and trying to motivate those kids to become in the technical field, I will give them the first book. Anything within the first book doesn't matter. You could be a friend, you could be a foe, you could be an acquaintance. I have no problem sharing out of that book. And in a general sense, along the masses, that's exactly how I would feel the same. I would treat them the same way. Like they're a bunch of, high school or college students in an auditorium, right? So I'm envisioning me standing on a stage and me talking about my career and my life. I'm going to leave out a lot of things because they don't really need to know, so they can be summarized, right? And that's how I would talk to everyone until they've started to show more green flags to me, right? So an audience is never going to go past the first book because they don't have the motivation to show me more green flags, to learn more about me.
So then that becomes okay. So this is where I'm going with is like this is like about like social media is supposed to not pretend, but it's supposed to almost as if you're in front of a million people all the time, right? As much as we want to foster like a small community. So then how do you remain the same person with your one-to-one to an entire massive community? Like how do you remain that same person, that same online presence with a massive influx with that difference, right? And I think that's
Just because you're filtering your information doesn't mean you still can't be you, right? Like I'm going to be me to my core no matter what, right?
yeah.
With my values, my thoughts, my opinions, how I want to portray myself, which is a super important topic too, right? Is about like understanding your awareness and how you want to portray yourself to be positive, negative, happy, sad, educational, non-educational, funny, not funny. Like there's a whole topic there. But when it comes down to brass tacks, you need to be yourself. I don't like the people that are fake online because I feel that after a while they'll crack and break down. I'd rather just be me. And the only difference is there's like a filter on my mouth that says, are you in this category? Or are you not? And if you're not, you just omit what you're about to say and then you move to a different topic. But if you are in that topic, then you go down those roads.
Yeah.
Does that answer I'm not sure that actually answered your question though.
Not really, only because okay, so here's my example, and both of you kind of want is like, okay, so you go from having a small knit community of 5 to 10 to you're used to handling those 5 to 10 on more of maybe a more personal basis, and now you're not going to be able to because there's 1,000 people. So how do you conduct yourself the same way online now, but you're not going to be able to? Like you have to you obviously are going to be your same self. But if you see where my question's going now, you have to switch gears to manage, let's say, 100 times the volume. And now you went from slowly metering yourself to now you can't do that anymore ever again. And you still need to foster your community. You can't just push them off as one auditorium because maybe 5% of that is going to go into your community and slowly grow. And so you have to now play both sides. Like if that's where my question goes is how do you bring people forward out of that in a scale where you can't talk to them one-on-one anymore?
So again, I'm talking about the idea of the torch and the moving forward, right? The entire people behind you, they're going to either march with you, stay aside, look at you, or even go the opposite direction, right? Because there's going to be people that just don't like you for just the way that you talk and the way that you say things, and that's okay. But if you march forward in the same direction, eventually people will start following you because of you, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not ever going to specifically filter on live in the sense of the who I am. I'm always going to show the people the who I am, regardless of where you are in that community, like in that space. I just may not. I'll purposely share things privately to those I feel that deserve more information. But the general masses, I'm going to be like, here we are, and here's what we're doing today, and I'll do that regardless of who they are, right? So what I'm trying to say is, it's to me, my baseline is going to be, I don't care if you are a new person, a person that's been with me since day one, a ride or die, someone who's known me for 20 years. I don't care. I'm going to have a general feel for the room direction that I want to go, and I'm going to march in that direction. So whether it's one person, 50 people, 100 people, 300 people, I'm still going to do the same thing I was going to do regardless on the room size. I may take advice from the room, right, to help make them feel respected and wanted in my space by reading the chat and being like, oh, you like the color blue. Here's some things that are blue, like here's a blue thing, and then help bring that in, right? But in a general sense, I'm still going to march forward in that same direction. I feel like I kind of skirted around still, but I'm not sure how to explain this in another way. So, Dad, you want to take the reins here and see if we can enlighten?
I don't think we've answered anything directly this entire chat, which is fine. We're covering a lot of bases, but I think we're definitely giving our ideas and opinions on what we feel is safe and what's not safe, and how we go about, like, what our train of thought is as far as interacting with the people. But it's very hard to nail down because it's different. With so many people, you try it and get as much information without even seeing their face. Like, you see a chat, so you have to make assumptions, and we all know what assumptions do. So we're assuming by a profile pic and previous interactions in the chat, and maybe we've seen them somewhere else. We're just assuming that that person is okay to be in there, and then we're responding, kind of like prompting. We're prompting them to see what kind of response we get. We're testing the waters without realizing it, because we're programmed to do that, because we're protecting not only ourselves but our community. So we'll spit out the same question we asked 492,000 other people at the same time, because we're concerned not only for our own information but our families. So and I'm not answering the question either, but it's it's different for all of us, but the same. So I think we're all headed in the same direction. What path we're taking is a little different, and how we qualify what's important in our group and the people is a little different, but essentially the same. You got to be good, you got to be honest, you got to be loyal, you got to be, like, try and keep the other people safe. And the safe part that you were talking about, Zen, it's super difficult, but I mean, out in the real world, same thing. Like, it's amplified on here, but it's just as dangerous out there. You never know. Like, you could be with a person for 20 years, and that's not the person you thought you knew. And on here, you see it so much. Like, you have a conversation, oh, this person seems genuine, then they come in one day and they say all this stuff, and you're like, what is going on here? Who is this person? Or you see them in somebody else's life, they're completely different, and it's like, what have I done? But I think as creators, we need to step back and go, that's not us, that's not our responsibility. Whatever anybody else does is not our responsibility. What we need to focus on is sticking to our goal, because what we're doing here is we're trying to grow a safe community, a healthy community, by doing this. And that's a huge thing about fostering, right? The fact that we're taking the time to do this outside of our lives, outside of everything else we have, the group of us getting together and going, here's what we are trying to figure out as well. Hopefully it helps, right? So that's I think that's a big safety thing. Like, we're showing however many people are going to watch this through however many platforms that it's okay to talk about this stuff, and it's okay to try and figure it out as you go. Nobody has all the answers, right?
Oh yeah.
That's a huge part of growing the community and fostering it. I think that is, like, we all have direction, but that direction will change and based on the obstacles.
Speaking
Yeah.
of personal growth and community growth, and you touched on what one of my questions was. With that, do you guys have like a list of questions that you ask to feel more comfortable with new people that come to the community? Like, do you guys have a playbook? Do you, like, what do you individually do for your communities to ensure that they're safe? Like, how do you vet people?
I don't know about you, but I asked location, age, height, eye color, credit score. No, I don't have a list. You go ahead, Seth.
Well, that's my big question is how would you, and this is a big I think this is a bigger topic than, and only, and so the like, imagine right now Like we can't, so we're unable to read any feedback or comments or anything going on. That's kind of the scenario of where I'm trying to poke at to build boundaries or to figure out some sort of a balance or other members, methods, strategies. But to that audience, that 90% of it's going to be rather invisible, but always present. So more people are going to be standing there than people that are willing to put up their hand and come be an example on stage. We know that to be, hey, come up on stage and be a volunteer. You're going to get a smaller percentage of the audience every time than you'd imagine. You're not going to have every member of the audience stick their hand up. We have that audience that I wouldn't say sits in the darkness though, right? Like that's not the right way. But they're at the back, right? They're at the back. They're just there to just kind of watch and see what's going on. And I think that's the hardest part to strategize around. Because other than being yourself, other than every day doing the thing that you're going to do anyways, right? Normal programming. How do you strategize around bringing a mass audience, right? It's not really the one at a time, but I think the strategy lies behind how you can mold your experience, whatever you're doing, because this can apply outside of this, right? Like this can apply just at a managerial level with a group of people, because you have to make something grand work for everybody. And so I think that's part of that strategy, is leaving that space where you can communicate, but how do you grow a bond when the exposure level is now to the public? I think that's because you'll never really get rid of anyone can kind of come in at any time with a online community, especially.
My thought here is, I'll use my analogy with the auditorium. Right? I'm going to scan the auditorium. I'm going to find out like the people that have already been validated in my life, that are in like the next chapter or the final book even. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to watch how they interact with that person first. Because I trust those people's opinions and thoughts. And if they're treated negatively, so like, let's say my main mod is getting upset about something somebody said, and that person that's talking, that's in the negative light, for example, isn't in stage 2 or stage 3 in my progression of those red flags or green flags. I'm going to go the judgment of the mod, right? Because reason for that is because they're on the boots on the ground, so to speak, right? So they can hear those comments and those thoughts of those people before I get to see them. So think of it like a I guess the initial filter isn't going to actually be me. It's actually going to be one of my mods or one of my trusted people in the chat, right? Because if they're communicating constantly with somebody that's new, that's a good flag to be like, okay, maybe I should pay attention to this person more, because they're giving positive vibes, they're interacting with the room in a positive way, it's going in the same direction as me, so now I've got my eye on you, right? You've been noticed in a crowd. Versus you've never said anything, you've never really commented, you've never really done anything, so you're neutral. I don't see you in that crowd. Why? Because you haven't even moved. You're a stiff board. You don't know if you fit or you don't fit in the conversation, right? You're the person in the back of the room who just got in halfway through the conversation and is standing in the back pillar, right? Listening to what I have to say to see if you're interested or not. So I think ultimately for me, that's how I would start, right? If you're seeing communication, you're seeing, things in the positive direction of where the rumor generally goes, then, that might be your first green flag. And then you kind of expand from there.
Yeah, I think the only reason I'm not trying to put up resistance, I think I'm just trying to see how that works in like when you have hundreds of people a day, not five. Like we're talking 2,000 people every, like there's no way of, like there's almost like you'd have hundreds of people making positive comments. Like you know what I mean? Where that blend ends up, that just that speed of that rotating door moves up so fast. Like I think where the only thing I can think of as strategy is obviously relinquishing like control to moderators and have more people to more eyes, right? That's all you can do is um, have more people looking. But that is definitely an area of concern for me as I continue to build my community, is as it grows to a size where it is impossible for me to individually communicate with every single person continuously, where it has to be in a group environment. And if they don't kind of want to be a part of a group environment, I can't push that group, and like I can't push them into it. I just have to grab that torch and continue to march forward. My biggest thing is you have to leave a path in for people, like for others to be able to come in easily. So I think that's part of the strategy there that I struggle with.
I think that if you envision yourself as that, like you're in a parade, right? And you've got those people behind you, you can make doors, for people to come into the center of the road, right? Whether it's not, and I'm not saying you directly to open the door, one of your mods could easily do that, right? And I think it comes down to something that I said earlier too, where I'm saying the trusted people that have validated and you trust, those are the people that you should be monitoring. You shouldn't be the host, shouldn't be the ones grabbing the new people. It should be your mods and your close people around you, because you can't, like you said, right? If the group is 50,000 people, how the heck are you going to see one person out of 50,000? You're not going to. But your scouts will, because that's their job. Their job is to find people that are similar minded or good to the community or feel they got a good positive vibe for, and they're the ones to monitor.
Yeah.
Right? You pick the team. Like, that's your job. Pick the team. Once you have the team, then their job is to help grow to bring in the new people, or at least put like hey, this one, and then you can be like, yeah, nah, or maybe we'll monitor. Right? At the very least, that's what they should be doing.
Well, much like watching our lives back, I think it's our responsibility to go watch the more successful creators, the ones with the rooms that have like 100 or 1,000 people even in them, like Simon Squibb. I watch him quite a bit. And the way he controls his chat is he focuses on one. He picks one and he'll pin that person, then he'll wait for them to come up, or his mod will, or something like that. Or people that have like 100 plus. Like I'm sure we've all experienced it where we've had more than 100 and we're like, oh my goodness, and it's just hectic and the chat's flying by and you're like, I don't even know what to do. You definitely need to start by focusing on your original message, and like if it's growing already, it's growing for a reason. So you need to focus on that. How do you keep up the one-on-one? The core people that have been with you from day one are going to understand that logistically it doesn't make sense. Like you can't take the time in the chat to focus on them. So they're going to understand that. Outside of it, if you have relationships with them, they're going to understand that, well, now you're a little busier. There's more people, there's more followers. So, I mean, your core group and your mods and like the people that are close to you are going to understand. And the ones that don't or don't want to move on, but like to worry about how to focus or who to focus on without having it be a consistent thing. Like if it became overwhelming, I could see it be an issue, but I haven't had a huge room in a long time, and like the traffic has just fallen off a lot. But it used to be a regular occurrence where my room would go from 50 people to 150 and it would stay there for an hour. And it's just like the first time it happens, you're just like, what is going on? I can't keep up. And for that to be a consistent thing, it's like at the time when it happened, I didn't know how to focus, who to focus on. But not everybody's talking at once. And when you see the key points that you want to address, if the other people that are saying stuff as well don't get addressed, they have a choice. They can wait and ask again and hope it gets noticed, or they can leave. And you have no control over that either way. But the people that actually are interested in staying in that community are going to stay. And maybe even if they don't get to say or hear a response in that live, they're going to come back to the next one. Because I'm sure we've all had it happen. Hey, last time you were live, I said this. Or something along those lines. Or they'll send you a DM or something. Did you get my DM? No, I didn't, sorry. Okay, this is what I wanted to talk to you about last time in your live. And I understand with thousands of people, that's very difficult. But like right now, we're at the point where it's not at that level. So I feel like implementing certain things that we do along the way to help as it grows, we have that opportunity to see what affects us and the chat in a positive way or a negative way. Kind of like what we do with this. What's working and what's not working right now. And that helps the community grow, I think, because you're trying to benefit. Neither of us are trying to benefit just us. We're trying to benefit everybody involved in this. So whatever we decide to do, if we get negative feedback, we're going to adjust accordingly. If we get the same thing and it's growing, we're doing something right, I think. I think we just have to do exactly what we're doing here. Just try shit, see if it works.
Yeah. Yeah, just from my experience, I don't really think there's like a ramp. I feel like there's a small knit and then busy. And I find that's the hardest thing. It sounded like you, just from your own experience, the dad, that you described that same thing. Like you, as soon as the room takes off, how do you continue doing what you're doing? And so what I'm putting together is we're trying to address what we can one-on-one, and then now we can no longer do that. And so you try, but it changes your program. And so that's part of to keep a consistent, that goes with what you plan to do in a live environment as entertainment, however you want to do. But now then my question is, how do you manage something like that even in an offline sense all the time too? And there's not really, you go from being a person who really wants to be one-to-one to one-to-one to one to you can no longer do that anymore as a creator much again. And even your close ones might, that's going to drift over time. So it's how do you maintain that all in a snowball is kind of, I think it'll always be something that's on like my radar, because you get a lot of people, the longer time goes, you have people naturally drift, people come back, right? And so you get some people that used to fit in and now they just want to, they just want to belong. Like they're looking for a belong. Everyone looks to belong, right? But some people look to actually like fit in and be an active member and be there like all the time. And they're, so you get that kind of difference. And so I think navigating that space never gets easier unless you get used to one or the other consistently. I've gotten used to the smaller environment. I think part of the growth is to how would you control that large audience all the time, so you're not changing your program up halfway through as all of a sudden you have a different audience size around you. And I think part of that is hard to remain the same, and then part of that gets taken offline as well. You're used to managing one-to-one to one, and now you go from having a bunch of people that are able to manage a small bunch to having such a large bunch of people that you don't have an intake process to getting people close to you in time. I think that's the safety part that I worry for.
That's a time management thing, I think, at the core. Because because there's more people, are you spending more time live? That would be a factor. And if you are, the people outside have to understand that, well, you're dedicating more time because you're growing. Maybe it's a growth spurt. Do you cut back? Do you stick to your program and dedicate that time that you originally set aside, regardless if there's 1,000 people in your room or 10?
So another thing, you could apply business rules to this. Business rules dictate that you have a team of people. You have a meeting with your team of people, and then they push out your vision, your message, right? Those would be your mods, right? Have a conversation with your mods and be like, this is a general direction I want to go, blah blah blah, and then like they may take under their own wing or their own thought of your vision, right? Which may or may not totally align, but at least you're not the one that's looking at it anymore. You've got your team of people, right? That's how major business works, right? They have directors. Those directors run their teams. Their managers then trickle down, trickle down, trickle down, trickle down. That's how it works,
Yeah.
right? Because the CEO of a business can't be focused on the leg of the day, right? Their managers have to be the ones that deal with the leg, and then they report to their team of people, right? And then you've got their team of people, then you've got the CEO, right? And this should be no different. Although you have full direction and full creativity, it should be run like that, to your team and then your team out to your community. At least that's in my opinion, of course.
Yeah, we need a team, especially when it gets to a certain scale. Like even starting off, like I have one mod, but she's got more followers than me. So she's on at different times, sometimes the same time. So how often she's in to actually do any modding? Occasionally I'll send her a message, hey, it's kind of busy. Do you mind popping in? But I think that's happened maybe twice. And it's once I get over a certain point, if I continue to grow at a certain rate, then yeah, I'll probably look at having other mods. But I've always, there's not much that can take me off my focus. So I don't really concern myself with any outside factors. I treat my life and my work and my business exactly like that. Like the shit that I can't control, the people that I have no idea what they're doing, the people in the back room or the ones that are talking a lot, I have no control over what they do other than like mute, block, whatever. But I can't predict, and I can't undo what's been said. All I can do is choose how I react to it and move on. But that shouldn't ever take away from my main focus, regardless of how many people come in or out. Um, and that's like trying as much as I can, understanding that within the constraints of being online, I'm trying to provide, like we all are, a safe environment. Now, safe is it's a relative word, right? How safe can we be is how much you're willing to put out there. What are you comfortable with? I think it's a comfort level thing. And if you've been burned before, I mean, that's a tough one too. But that's kind of like carrying luggage from a previous relationship to a new one. Can you judge tomorrow on what happened yesterday?
Well,
You
until
know,
there's a pattern. That's the other thing though. Until there becomes a pattern from experience, which is where my cry comes from, right? That's been my big thing.
I look at it like this: let your freak flag fly, as long as you're respectful. You know, you can be you. That's what I want. I want Zen to be Zen, authentic Zen, not photocopied Zen. I want him to be authentic. I want him to be real. I want him to be who he is to his core. But I want him to be respectful. You know, just because you have a different freak flag than me doesn't mean we can't be friends. Doesn't mean that we can't communicate with each other and be respectful of each other's boundaries. Right? And I think that goes for every single person in every single life. Like being a core value, right?
I think a lot like a business, like you were talking about before, you have to adapt and you have to listen to the people around you, your team. even if you don't have a team of mods, even if it's just your regulars in the chat or other creators that pop by every now and then, you need to evolve with what's happening on the app. Like I'm sure we're all experiencing a dip in traffic now. What do we do to address that? How do we pivot? What do we do to continue growing? And like even though it's slow growth, it's still growth. Do we go, oh, it's just a slow spot, or do we look at ourselves and go, is this something that I'm doing to cause this slow growth? Like it's something that you're constantly evaluating. So you have to evaluate yourself and evaluate your team and look at what you've surrounded yourself with, and has that changed your initial path, your initial set of beliefs, and go, well, did somebody push me off into another direction? Did I let that happen? How do I recorrect my course, and who do I have that conversation with? First of all, it should be you, and then if there's outside factors, address those outside factors, and then change the team or correct their course as well. If it's your chat, then have that, hey, we can't talk about this anymore, or hey, we should talk about this more. How do you guys feel about it? Like that type of scenario. Not like you're telling them what they can and can't say, but if that's a factor that's inhibiting things or causing things to grow, you should focus on that or limit that, right?
But what if your outside factor is a troll? Right? Like somebody that hates you so much because you're doing better than them that they want to tear you down. How do you
do about that?
how do you deal with that?
Like
You guys
if they're already blocked, what else can you do? Like is there, like, you have no control over other people.
That's true. You don't. But like, what if you went live and you were like, "Oh, that Bite Boss guy, he's so freaking talkative. He never lets me get a word in. Blah blah blah." Like, you know what I mean? Just saying that as an example. I'm not saying you would. I'm just saying, what if you came across a live that was talking about you like that? Do you do anything about that? Do you let it go? Do you like? Because that's a fear for me going live.
That's fueling the fire, I think. I don't think you as a responsibility, you can't. There's nothing you can do. If anything, if you said anything in that environment, they've already made the decision to waste their time and talk about somebody else. You're going to add fuel to it by showing up. You can't. You have to ignore that. Like you cannot fuel or control anything that outside people do.
I think the biggest thing for me would be to make sure that it's not a member of my community. That would be where there would be a huge, if you're not a member of my community, technically it's their castle against my castle. I wouldn't honestly expect, like, I mean, you'd hope everyone would be friendly and loving, but I mean, team versus team, there's a competitive part too, right? So to some part, you're doing something to get some sort of press out of the person. How negative it goes definitely can be affecting, your personal, how you feel. But I think that the biggest impact would be, are they a member of someone who's currently around your closer bunch, or especially if they're in a trusted circle, because we're going to have those circles that are going to go outwards. And as we go out away from us, that trust is going to go down. So where do they lie? And if it's just if it's a public opinion, it's like the peanut gallery, right? It's not really, it's not something you really want to hear, but if it's not ultra damaging, it's almost like, to a point I've learned to realize a little bit, it's like free advertising. If there's someone not happy with you, you got to be doing something right to be talked about, right?
If they're respectful in your live and they're talking shit in somebody else's, they're still talking about you. That's exactly what it is. How much attention and what amount of respect you give them. Do you make it a hard line and go, no, you're not allowed in my room, block them, that's it? Or do you just let it go? As long as it's not bleeding into your chat and it's happening more and more.
That's why I say the community though, right? Because now you get a safety part. Talk about one, we'll talk about another.
And it goes back to the core about, if they know you from the beginning, they're not going to believe what's being said by one.
So how would you deal with someone like that in your community? So they're in your community, but not the most active around you. Like they don't have a good opinion of you because they don't spend the right amount of time around you. That's typically, we speak from damaged, from a damaged portion, and then we speak to usually an area of we don't really know better.
I actually had to deal with that with somebody else. That person would come into my live, totally respectful, but said inappropriate things behind another person's back who I respect. So I addressed it by mentioning, hey, this is what I've heard. And I witnessed it. So I'm only telling you so that you have the knowledge. And it was one of their closer circle people. So they took their own actions, and it was up to them. Now I still see that person come in and out of my life. Have they done anything disrespectful to me or anybody in my community other than that person?
Okay. But now do you keep an eye on that person? Like an extra little like, what are you up to over here?
I'm not focused on anybody but me. And that's what keeps me, because you cannot focus on it. If you spend time focusing on every little thing like that, man, are you going to drain yourself and you're going to go nuts. Because once you start getting a bunch of followers, there's the potential for all of them to do that. Because we don't know people. We have a chat. That's it. And like I said, we're assuming. It's so difficult as creators. That's something that most people don't understand until they try it themselves. Where do you draw the line? How much attention do you pay to outside stuff? And I learned real quick, stop focusing on all of the crap that you think might happen. Just watch, and whatever happens, happens. You cannot control other people because we don't have the time or the energy. It's impossible. And when you scale at levels like some of us are at in here, it's impossible. You can't.
Well, that's the typical thing, right? It gets really difficult when you have members of the community that don't get along, but they're both mutually there for the creator, right? And that's one of those where auditorium situation, it's just people, as long as they're sitting in their seats and staying in their lane, however example you want to look at that, right? There isn't much you can do. And that's where online and offline, that
That's like
safety.
hating on somebody for liking Ford instead of Chevy. We have no
Well,
control over what their opinion is. Like, oh, I can talk shit on Chevy all I want.
or
Uh,
we're at an automotive convention and we have Chevy, Ford, and Dodge fans in the audience, but we're all
yep,
there to see automotive.
yep.
So as long as those three are getting along and are able to move forward with, keeping the automotive convention in order and not causing, then yeah, right? And then it's how do you gauge between where does that line, drawing that line, because then like I said, my largest concern and always will be is that safety part of it, right? Because now that can get that can go pretty quick. You get the right mix of the right people with the right opinion, and now you form a side in the middle of your community that you accidentally fostered by playing Switzerland the whole time. And so that's and then it's easy to manage up to a point, up to a few hundred, maybe even 1,000 people, but after that, you must very carefully manage everything, or that can get right out of control, positive or negative.
Well, I'm sure we've all been in rooms, other people's rooms, where there's people in there that we don't agree with, or maybe we've had altercations with, whatever. They've said something disrespectful in our chat, or maybe off the chat, something. And we still go into there, like the other person's room, because we're providing support to that person. Do we pay any attention to the person that said those things? No. Even if they did direct a comment towards us, they tag us in it or whatever, or they came into our room and said something, do we devote any attention to that? You could, but why? They've decided that their agenda in their life is not important enough to focus on improving at any point. And they've gone, well, I'm going to take this opportunity to waste my time and somebody else's and go, I don't think you're a nice person, or whatever may come out of their mouth, or them type. That's their choice. Do you want to focus on that by going, well, hey, you're a dink too? Like, I'd rather focus on the nice comment in, or the the pat on the back. Hey, good job. Loved your live this morning. Not the you're too old to be on TikTok comment, which I don't know how many times I've seen, which I think is hilarious and amazing. But like, it's what we focus on, and how we respond to the negative, and the focus is always on us, and that amplifies by the amount of people, and then it gets distributed out there. So that's the main way we grow. But if we focus on the negative, that gets amplified immediately. Like, immediately. We can focus on the positive all we want and portray this I love everybody message and all that stuff. But as soon as we point out a flaw or a negative aspect that we've noticed, and then we tell people about it and react to it, that gets amplified tenfold, depending on who's in your chat.
For me, it's going to depend on like the severity of said thing. If you can't have a difference of opinion and still be respectful to each other, then there's a problem, right? But if you can, like, for example, like using Zen and his car show, there are Chevy lovers, there are Ford lovers, there are Fiat lovers, but there are people out there, right? And in a general convention, they can all generally converse with each other and not, rip each other down. There'll be jabs here and there, of course, because there's where people are. But you have to look at that and go, all right, was that a serious jab, or was that just like oh, you're just a Chevy guy, and this relates to everywhere, right? Just because you don't like somebody or don't feel the same opinion about somebody doesn't mean you can't be respectful to each other about it and hear what each other have to say, even though it may not be your own, which is a difficult thing to do, by the way. That's something I had to learn throughout my life goals, is having that, okay, you feel differently than me, but why? And can we come to a respectful ground with each other? And if you can't, then maybe I just ignore you. Don't talk to you. Don't purposely go out of my way to say hi. Like, I'm not going to go to a Chevy guy and be like, hey man, let's go for a beer, right? Because I'm not a Chevy guy. But I might respect his thoughts or her thoughts on said thing, right? We can have a conversation in a room. We can talk, but like, personally, am I going to go back out and find that person? Probably not. And the community is kind of the same way, right? You're going to have people that have the same opinions that don't have the same opinions. Or I might think somebody's a little too forward, and, they say things that might be a little inappropriate. But just because I feel that way doesn't mean others do.
I mean, you did give me a bit of a side eye because you found out I ride a motorcycle. So I mean,
Was it a side eye, or was it more like a side eye?
um, yes,
Right? You don't know. You don't know where that came from.
no, and that's it. Like, there's no context. Even
Yeah.
sometimes in the chat, we don't know a person well enough, because we haven't spent enough time around them to know their mannerisms and how they react with other people, unless you take the time to go around and watch them in other chats and stuff like that, which is very time consuming. So you kind of have to desensitize at some level. Like, the amount of not care is up to you. and that's a hard thing to gauge. Like my ex being in my chat. Well, I'm not with anybody, and she's my ex. Well, I had lives with my ex, and people didn't know that's who that was, and I'm co-hosting with her. And when I had guest boxes, she was in my guest box, and then it came up in conversation. I went, "Yes, that's my ex," and they're like, "What?" There's nothing that I'm going to talk about or say, or that she's going to say, that is damaging because it's in the past. It happened. So I could care less. Like, whatever, if she chose the route of being disrespectful at some point, I'm like, okay. I have no control over what she says. I know that the things that happen between us, we're respectful with each other and we went our separate ways. If she changes that narrative on her own, up to her. Am I ever going to take that path? Nope. So the people that follow me will forever know that I've never said anything disrespectful, regardless of what may have been said. And I'm not saying she said anything, but like, take that as a relationship with anybody. It doesn't matter what they said. Did you hear it out of my mouth? Or did I ever talk poorly about them? No. So if you want to listen to them, your choice. You want to listen to me, your choice.
Something else to be mindful of as human beings, when we become closer with one another, this is friendships, relationships, um, community. So, like if you go to church or whichever, the people that you're around every day and the people that you listen to every day will inadvertently meld with yourself. You'll find. For example, like there's studies about all this stuff, guys. Like you can look this all up. This is part of sociology. What basically the fundamentals are here are if you're with somebody every day, you'll pick up their mannerisms. You'll eventually meld together in a way that you communicate without communicating half the time, right? Because you know what the other person's going to be thinking about because you've been with them long enough to know. Like, for example, I don't know if you guys all know, and Zen might get mad at me for saying this, I don't know. But Zen and I are really close friends. We talk to each other often. I found myself halfway through last year realizing that he's influencing me in a positive way in my own life. He has made advancements in my thinking and my thought pattern and has elevated me in a way that is very positive.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know, but here's the thing though. Like I found last night, for example, he has a phrase that he has said inadvertently, and I said to myself in my own community circles yesterday, and I went, "Huh, that's interesting." But because we communicate on a regular basis with each other, I picked up one of his mannerisms that he says. And it starts with "what the," in case you're wondering. And I said it out loud. And I laughed at myself at that because I was like, wow, he did actually imprint on me in a positive way. And this same strategy goes around whether or not you're communicating verbally, text, whatever. Eventually, your ride or dies or the people that you're that close to, you will mold into a form of same communication or similar communication. And you'll find that, like if you reflect on, for example, on some of our conversations, you probably notice that some of my mannerisms that I used to do kind of changed you a little. If you reflect, you might not find that. I don't know, but I know for me it did. So what my point is here is that just to be mindful that the people that you circle yourself around and that you're closest to also will eventually reflect some decision making and alteration. And that's just the way that humans are together. Like it's not a dig at anybody or a thought. It's just that's just the way we are as human beings.
Yeah, it's subconscious. It's at a subconscious level that we do that. I mean, if on the female side, they're I don't know if anybody's going to get offended by this, but their cycles sync up by being together. Like it's just it's a I don't know what causes that. I don't know the science behind it, but it's proven. And like humans in general pick up, and it goes back to what you're focused on. Like, what if that person has negative traits, you will pick up the negative traits and amplify that and project that. But if it's a positive thing, or if you're trying to change your mindset and you see somebody that has positive things, you pick up on those immediately. But it's a subconscious thing where you start taking over their mannerisms, and you borrow it, but sometimes you adapt it in your own way. Other times it's just blatant, and you do, like you said what he says, which is, you know, that's a straight out of the box. I like it. I'll use that. Thank you. And it's a subconscious thing where you just react to it and you think it's kind of like a what would Jesus do moment. Only in this case, it's what would Zen do, or what would Bite Boss do, or what would I do? Yeah.
I got a question for you guys as we. So if someone new joined today in your community and you couldn't communicate with them, how would you want them to feel?
Okay. I've met a friend in Belarus recently who I just stumbled upon. Doesn't speak a lick of English. Like zero English. And I thought that that person had a good positive vibe, and that maybe we would gel good together because of our communication skill. Like, because like we like the same things, we talk the same way, etc. Even though we're different languages. So I went out of my way to try to start communicating in their native language, using Translate and other things, and trying to make like a joke, like, yeah, I get that we have a communication barrier, but do we really? Because our technology today can make those changes. And since meeting that person, like, I've communicated like at least once a week. I'm just like, hey, how's it going? Blah blah blah, like yada yada yada. And then like we convert each other's things. Sometimes it's funny because the conversion doesn't convert properly, and then we laugh about it. She's like, did you mean this? And then we're like, no. And then you reword it differently. And I feel that like there is a barrier for sure. Definitely hinders that kindling of being likeness or together feeling, I guess, because of the communication barrier, because it's more difficult. But it's also more interesting because those changes makes subtle, like having that translate completely wrong, and you're like, wait, did you just call me pregnant, question mark? Right? And you're like, no. Right? Adds for another layer to that communication. And both of us have the respect of each other to know that if we say something completely out of line or out of whack, it's probably the translator, and we laugh about it instead of being concerned. And that's a live experience that's like been developing in the last like week, right? For me, right? So ultimately what I'm saying is that just because there's barriers doesn't mean you can't kind of work your way through them and navigate them, and then turn them from a complete stranger to a friend.
So you're saying you want people to come into your room and feel like a friend?
Mm-hmm. That I took the time, that I made an effort to make them feel at home, or at least at ease, right? Someone who is non-threatening, who is there to be respectful and thoughtful of you and your feelings. Even though, because that's ultimately what I want from my friends in my community, is to validate that, you know, that I'm okay, and that they've actually taken the 5 minutes it takes to send a text to just be like, hey man, how you doing today? For me, that's a goal, right? And that's what I want for others to feel the same. Because I feel like that's like step one on that road of building communication and building friendship, is just something subtle and small, but it is huge because you're actually taking interest in that person.
I think I just want people to feel like being themselves. Like it's okay to whatever you're feeling at the time or whatever you want to communicate, convey, whatever. It's okay. Just come in and say it. Like the range of emotion just this past week that I've experienced on my live from going from like started the live all happy and everything, and somebody comes in and just drops a bomb, and it's somebody that I've known for a long time, and I like maybe not the best place to say it, and you kind of like you have to take a step back and look and go, oh, why would you do that to my room? And but it's them coming in. I had to readjust and look at it again and go, it's them coming in feeling safe in my room saying, I've known you for this long. These are what I'm feeling right now. I have to tell somebody because maybe they don't have anybody to tell. And you're their only person, even though there's, 20 or 30 other people in the chat and maybe hundreds are watching from the outside, but they feel comfortable enough that in the room where you are at that moment, they can go, oh my goodness, this just happened. And they know that you're going to take the time to address it and give them whatever support you can at this capacity. And the chat that's in there is also going to. So I think I want that level of comfort that I've worked really hard on building. And even sometimes for me, I struggle with it because you're like, I wish everybody could just come in and be a rays of sunshine and say, hey, how are you? You look amazing today. And I'm amazing too. And it's all unicorns and rainbows, but it's not. It's life. And people are going to come in and go, blah. And you're like, oh, God, like, what do I do with that? I was in such a great mood. Well, you can still stay in the great mood, but you can also feel with them and understand where they're coming from. Just try for a second and go, all right, I'm here. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate you. I'm not sure what we can do from here, but thanks for feeling comfortable in telling us, like me and us. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like it's an honor, and at the time, it's hard. It's shocking, and you're like, what do I do now? Like, it just ruined the whole atmosphere of the room, but it kind of didn't. It kind of amplified what you started off the room for, right? It's like that one person comes in and is comfortable saying that in front of everybody. It was just something catastrophic that happened to them, and I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine. Here I am having a great time just sitting down playing some music for people, and this person's going through that, and I have the audacity to go, why would you put that in my room? Like, okay, click, and I don't deserve this type thing. It was that type of moment. Shut up. What did you start this for? Okay. I'm sorry that happened to you. What can I do to help? And immediately, the chat, like even before I could get the words out, oh my goodness, so sorry to hear that. What can we do? And that's just like, that's the comfort level that I want for everybody coming in.
It's interesting that you say it like that because I generally, if I want somebody to know something about me like that, like I've gone through some wild crap this year in 2025, like surgeries and everything. I don't think I would go into somebody's room and drop like that. I think what I might do is be like, can I message you privately? And then have that conversation.
Yes. That's the rational way of thinking about it. Yeah. But like sometimes people are just overwhelmed and they have no idea where to put
in
it.
the moment.
Like where, and if they felt safe with you before and they don't have that anywhere else, you're their conduit. That's where they're going to put it. Because I thought that too. Like, why would you say that in my chat? We've all had that experience. Like people come in and dump stuff and we're like, why? Message me or message. Well, they don't have anybody or they can't figure out how to communicate it to anybody at that time. So they just come in and they see something on the screen and go, oh, Here you go. I don't know what to do with this. Here. I'm sure we've all had that moment ourselves where we don't know what to do with something. We just kind of spit it out and go, "Oh shit. Well, I guess we'll see what happens now." I think that's how I can relate that moment. Or it's I really got to tell this person because they've made me feel safe before. So hopefully it's the latter. But what do you think, Zen? What do you want people to feel when they come in?
Well, my question was more like for someone brand new. So like someone that you've never interacted with ever. So for me, I want someone new coming in the room um to be in tune to, first of all, I think we're social media tunes us out more than tunes us in. So I think that's like the first issue is a live environment you need to tune into. And I think the first thing is I want them to have an understanding of what's going on. Because if you were to walk into a room with a whole crowd of people talking, the first thing you'd want to know is what are we talking about? So like what's the topic? What's the discussion? Where am I getting my entertainment from? If they're looking for that entertainment, which you'd hope entertainment or education. As much as I want to convey the safety and community and everything, I think that's kind of something I think if someone walked in the first thing in the room and you tried to sell them your community and everything, I think that ends up going almost like you're like, come on into the circle, and it's like it almost pushes it past welcoming. I think like the big thing is part of welcoming anyone in would be to know what everybody else is already on topic of, and I find that to be something that is going to always be a difficulty of mine, to stay focused on a topic long enough to roll it so the chat can react, so you can have a chain reaction. And that comes with any live environment. If your focus off is if your topics are unfocused, the audience has a hard time keeping track of what's going on. And so someone new coming in the room is going to take a lot longer to figure out, and then that's going to make them the feeling of unwelcomed or too much overwhelmed, and might not lead to a welcoming experience.
That's a hard one to address initially. The like somebody that you're interacting with immediately when they come in, or somebody that you've noticed come into the room, they've been there for a while. It's two different things. Like, how do you
So
want somebody to feel coming
angle
in?
like fresh. So
Like, if it was just me live and then one person came in and that was the first person, what do I want that person to feel by introducing themselves to me in the first, or like seeing a chat that's already happening? So I think there's different levels of that, I think. So somebody brand new coming in could potentially come in and sit and watch. That's really hard to answer. Like, I think I'd still go with comfort. Without, I'm not trying to sell it, but it's just watching organically what's happening. There's always a level of comfort, whether it's funny, witty, back and forth stuff, or just like stupid humor, or like me cooking or music. There's always a level of support in the conversation. I think that's really easy to feed off and take that this is an okay place to say whatever I want to say at the time.
Yeah, I think a new person gets the vibe of the room pretty quickly. And they get the vibe of the room from the chat, not from you. Right? If the chat's positive and uplifting and they're not in the mood for that, they're probably just going to scroll on. But if they're in for that, they look at the chat, they go, okay, I can get behind what this is going on. And then they hear from you for reassurance. At least that's my thought. Like when I go into a room for the first time, just literally what I do. I read the room, read the chat, see what's going on, listen to the creator, right? Is the creator reinforcing what the chat is? Are they on the same page? Are they not? And then I get the vibe for the room afterwards. and then I decide whether or not I'm going to stay or go.
Yeah, because the range of introductions when people come in, strangers come in, is like you can't predict. The things that people say when they first come in to introduce themselves, there's no way you can predict that. Like some of the stuff has thrown me for a loop, and some has been like the kindest, sweetest things you'd ever expect. Others just like left field out of nowhere, and you're like, that's amazing. Like you kind of want to walk into a room and introduce yourself with some of the winners that have come across the page. But yeah, whatever. Some people come in and announce the vibe that they want. Other people just come in and look and wait. They're watchers. They like to watch.
For my favorites are the people that come in and just be like, "Sup?" You're like, "Hi."
Well, different dynamic though. Like for new people, yeah, just to say sup, you're like sup. But for us to do it, it's fine.
It's a little different,
Yeah.
but that's because we know each other.
Any closing? Anything to close? Any long
I did
close?
something yesterday to grow the community a bit. I had a co-host with a community member, and we ate apple pie. So she came into my live. I was cooking something, and somehow we got on the topic. I like apple pie and I like gravy, and she said I like both too, but I wouldn't eat them together. I said, well, we should. So we both agreed to do that. We've been trying to schedule it for weeks, but she had doctor's appointments and all that stuff. So we finally got together and ate apple pie and gravy and pickles and peanut butter and cheese. We tried all these different combinations, but it was about different collaborations with other people that come up with ideas, or maybe you come up with ideas, and trying to grow the community that way. And I loved it. It turned out amazing. Like absolutely disgusting, some of it. But the what stole the show was a pickle with apple pie. If you've never thought about eating a pickle in an apple pie, it's fantastic. Like even better than the peanut butter. But anyways, that's not the point. Like I have a whole bunch of ideas with other creators coming up for, stuff that helps not only grow my community and foster other ideas, but their community. So that the fact that they're not, it's not that they're not a part of my community anymore. They're branching off and growing their own. And thus far, I don't know why, but all of the people that have left my community and gone on to grow their own are far surpassed where I am now. But good for them. You can't do nothing but feel like positive things about what they've done, right?
For me, for the people that are listening, I just want you to remember the next time you scroll into someone's room who's new, maybe sit there for a minute and see if the vibe's okay. Talk to somebody, say hello. Don't just doom scroll and scroll on and scroll on and scroll on. Maybe you got dropped into a live for a reason. And just take the 5, 10, 20 minutes, whatever it's going to be, evaluate it and see if you fit. Because if you do, you might find some really great people.
My intro to that was a question for all of us, actually. What are we doing to grow our community? That was my closing statement. What are we doing to foster our community and its growth? And what are we doing in the future? If it's stagnant, there's probably a reason. Or if it's growing slowly and we want more, what are we doing? What should we do?
What I just got to say to everyone is there's a lot more people that stand in our individual communities than we realize. And growth is a lot quieter than you notice when it comes to fostering a community. And I can definitely say that you just have to trust. You always have to continually trust in new people. but to remember that that growth is going to be a lot slower than you'd ever imagine. And by the time you add up those small little bits together, it's a big gain over time.
Thank you, son.
I think that wraps everything up, eh?
So,
I think so.
All right, everybody. Well, I hope everyone has a great week. Smiles, everybody. Take care.
Take care, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.